Chicago Med put the spotlight on Dean Archer in the latest episode of the 2025 TV schedule, and the day that started off on a tragic note for him just kept on escalating. Admittedly, he did a fair of that escalating himself, to the point that even Hannah ran out of patience with him, for a time anyway. The book of Archer ended with the two planning on spending at least part of an evening together, and the credits rolled with me feeling conflicted on just about everything except that stars Steven Weber and Jessy Schram were great. Archer learned almost immediately in episode 17 that his ex-wife had died after passing out drunk and hitting her head, getting the news from scene in Florida. He then went to work and was greeted with the news that since Lennox was taking a personal day, Goodwin needed him to run the ED. Hannah clocked pretty quickly that there was something off Archer beyond his usual grouchiness, but he didn't explain. What he did do was take his feelings out on patients and his colleagues, even Hannah. It wasn't until after he was attacked by a drug-fueled patient and learned some of Lennox's backstory that he finally opened up to his closest ally in the ED. Hannah was of course sympathetic as he shared the story behind how his marriage fell apart, but then he began second-guessing all the decisions that his family to where they ended up. Hannah tried to get through to him that he needs to focus on moving forward, making changes, and working towards where he wants to be. Archer asked her where he wants to be, but she was done with the conversation if he was just going to keep torturing himself. And I honestly thought that's where the episode would end on Dean and Hannah's scenes, and that the shot of Archer forlornly failing to pour himself a proper bowl of Captain Crunch would be the last before the credits rolled. I was expecting kind of a bummer of an ending. Instead, Hannah came through. She knocked on his door and showed that she had brought dinner and dessert, revealing a box of Captain Crunch berries. When he somewhat hilariously said that he doesn't do the berries variety because he finds them indulgent, she shrugged and responded that maybe it's time for a change. And believe it or not, he came very close to smiling, agreed that maybe it is, and invited her in. The credits did in fact roll before the big reveal of whether she could talk him into living large and trying Captain Crunch berries, and I was left puzzled over how to feel about it. I've always loved the dynamic between Archer and Hannah going back to their unlikely beginning, when him wanting Goodwin not to hire her started turning into them becoming each other's closest confidants in the ED. I even asked Jessy Schram about the relationship when we spoke during season 7, and she confirmed that neither she nor Steven Weber saw the Archer/Asher bond coming. I'd also about new showrunner Alan McDonald's take ahead of season 10 when he described them as having a very hard-to-define relationship. Even Archer's recent heartfelt moment while on acid was largely effective thanks to him having her on hand. In the show, both characters have always denied a romantic connection, including a funny scene, including a confused scene Archer, in which Hannah so emphatically said there was no way that a slightly offended Dean had to point out that he's got the idea. They've been fun pals of the Chicago Med ED. But dang it, the way that their moments were played in the Book of Archer, I would have suspected romance blooming for pretty much any other pair of characters. Heck, I'd probably be wondering if social media had a ship name for them, even though Hannah has had such strong feelings for Ripley. So what are we to believe? Is this just a new, more open chapter of their friendship? Was this a one-off kind of episode that could only happen because Archer was emotionally struggling with the death of his ex? Were the Captain Crunch berries a sugary metaphor for their relationship? And are Captain Crunch berries really too indulgent for an adult to eat? Well, one of those questions is easiest to answer at this point, and it would involve a trip to the grocery store. In all seriousness, as to what the future holds or doesn't hold, for Archer and Asher, I can only look to the promo for the next episode for clues. Take a look. Whatever the relationship future holds for Hannah, the next episode at least promises to address the situation with Ripley. The wait is also currently on for news of whether the 3 shows of One Chicago will return for the 2025 to 2026 TV season. I'm personally not too worried about any of them being canceled, but confirmation ahead of the spring finals would certainly be nice. Unfortunately, One Chicago is going on a brief break, and Chicago Med won't be back in its usual 8 p.m. ET time slot on NBC Wednesdays until April 16.